You know, when we first got the request to do a deep dive on this Robin Pope case, I was immediately struck by the detail about her high heels still being on.
Yeah.
It's just like, what? It just seems so strange.
So weird detail for sure.
It is. Yeah. And we've got a ton of stuff to go through here. Police reports, interviews with family and friends, even some stuff from Robin's daughter.
Oh, wow.
So you ready to dive into this one?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so just to kind of set the stage, we're in Stevensville, Maryland.
Okay.
This is back in 2013.
Oh.
And Robin Pope, she's a 51-year-old breast cancer survivor.
Wow.
And she vanishes without a trace. But here's the thing. She was separated from her husband, Wayne.
Ah, yeah. Separations always add another layer of complexity to these cases, don't they?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And from what I'm reading in all this material, the tension between these two was it's pretty thick.
Yeah.
And they had this beautiful house on the Chesapeake Bay, you know, a Great Dane named Bella. But it just seems like under the surface, things were not good.
Yeah.
You know, Robin was having an affair.
Oh.
And Wayne was...
not happy about it, I imagine.
Yeah. Well, he confronted the other man with a gun.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's not a good sign.
No, not at all. And it just seems like this whole situation was like a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
You know, just waiting to explode.
Yeah.
And then on March 2nd, 2013, it did my one and fall. Wayne calls 911 to report Robin missing.
Okay.
But his story from the very beginning,
yeah,
it's just weird.
What does he say?
Well, he claims that he saw her sleeping in her car at his house late at night.
Okay.
Says he woke her up and then just left for his parents' house.
So he left her there in her car.
Yeah. And that's not all. When the police get there, they find Robin's car at Wayne's place.
Okay.
But all of her stuff's inside.
Like what?
Like her purse, her phone, even her medication.
Huh. That's odd. You'd think she'd take that with her.
Right. Exactly. It seems like something's off.
Yeah, definitely.
And then to make matters even worse, the next day.
Yeah.
Bella, the Great Dane.
Oh, no.
They find her body washed up on shore near Wayne's house.
Oh.
And the autopsy shows she died from hypothermia.
So she was alive when she went into the water?
Yeah. And there were bruises on her paws. Like she was trying to get out.
That's awful.
It is. And it just makes this whole thing even more suspicious.
Yeah. I mean, how did Bella end up in the water in the first place?
Right. Was it an accident? Or did something else happen?
And this is all before they've even found Robin.
Exactly. And you know, when I was reading about this, I kept thinking back to something Robin's daughter Rachel said about Wayne.
Oh, what's that?
She said that he used to throw Bella in the pool.
What?
Even though the dog was terrified of the water.
Seriously. That's messed up.
Yeah. It's disturbing.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what else might have been going on.
Right. And then we look at Wayne's behavior during the police interview. It just adds another layer of weirdness.
Oh, how so?
Well, his story keeps changing.
Oh, really?
First, he says he was having dinner with friends.
Okay.
Then he says he was bringing food to Rachel at work, which she denies.
Oh, wow. So he's lying.
It sure seems that way.
And what about the rest of his alibi?
Well, he claims he swapped cars with his parents that night, but they don't remember that happening.
Huh.
And then there's the surveillance footage from a 7-Eleven that shows Wayne there, but the timing doesn't line up with what he's telling the police.
So his alibi is falling apart?
Yeah, it is. And then to top it all off,
What?
they find Robin's blouse washed ashore near where Bella was found.
Oh, wow. It's like the pieces are starting to come together, but not in a good way.
No, not at all.
So what happens next?
Well, about 3 weeks later,
Yeah.
they find Robin's body floating near the shore.
Oh, gosh.
It's a heartbreaking discovery,
Right.
but it doesn't really answer any of the questions.
How so?
Her body was so decomposed
Yeah.
that they couldn't determine a cause of death.
So we still don't know how she died.
Nope. And you know what's really strange?
What?
Despite the condition of her body, she was still wearing her high heels.
That is odd.
Yeah.
Why would that be?
I don't know. It's one of those details that just doesn't make sense.
It's like a clue, but we don't know what it means.
Exactly. And then to make things even more complicated,
Yeah.
Wayne cremates her body right away.
Oh, wow. So there's no chance for another examination.
Nope. It's like he's trying to erase any possibility of finding out what really happened.
It's definitely suspicious.
It is. So now we're left with all these pieces of the puzzle, but no clear picture.
Yeah. Was Robin's death a tragic accident? Or was it something more sinister?
It's hard to say at this point, but I'm definitely leaning towards something more sinister.
Me too. And that's what we're going to explore as we continue our deep dive into this case. But before we get into the different theories, I want to hear from you. What are your initial thoughts? What details stand out to you?
Well, I have to say, Wayne is looking pretty shady right now. I mean, all signs seem to point to him, but we need to look at all the evidence before we jump to any conclusions.
I agree. Let's take a closer look at the different theories that have been proposed and see where they lead us. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so let's start with the theory that this was all just a horrible accident, you know?
Okay.
Bella falls into the water. Robin tries to save her, and they both end up drowning. It's a sad story for sure.
Yeah, it is. But the more I read about this case,
Yeah.
the more I think that maybe it wasn't an accident.
Yeah. What makes you say that?
Well, for one thing, Robin's daughter, Rachel, she said that her mom rarely went down to the pier.
That's interesting.
So why would they have been there late at night?
Right.
And Bella, I mean, she was an older dog,
Yeah.
but she wasn't ancient, you know.
Yeah.
The idea of her just falling into the water just doesn't seem that likely.
I see what you mean. And plus, if Bella did fall in and Robin jumped in after her, wouldn't you expect their bodies to be found closer together?
Yeah, that's another thing that doesn't make sense. They were found pretty far apart,
They were.
which makes me think that something else happened.
Yeah, and don't forget about those bruises on Bella's paws.
Right. That's another thing that points to something more than just an accident.
Yeah. It seems like she was struggling to get out of the water.
She was. So, okay, we've got some serious doubts about the accident theory.
Yeah.
What about the possibility that Wayne had something to do with this?
I mean, it's definitely a possibility, right?
Yeah, I mean, his statements to the police were inconsistent. He's got a history of controlling behavior.
Right.
And then there's the fact that he cremated Robin's body so quickly.
Right. It's all very suspicious.
It is. So the theory is that Wayne murdered Robin, maybe in a fit of rage, or maybe it was premeditated.
Yeah. And then he staged the scene with Bella to make it look like an accident.
Exactly. Like he was trying to create this elaborate cover-up.
Yeah, but the question is, do we have enough evidence to prove that?
Right. Because right now, all we have is circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's not always enough to get a conviction.
So we're stuck in this kind of in-between zone.
Yeah.
Where we suspect that Wayne did something, but we can't say for sure.
It's frustrating, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think there's something else we need to consider here.
Oh, what's that?
Wayne's behavior towards Bella.
Okay.
I think it might be a key to understanding what happened to Robin.
Okay, I'm listening.
So we know that he used to throw Bella in the pool,
Right.
even though she was terrified of the water.
Yeah.
And, experts say that that kind of behavior towards animals can be a sign of something more serious.
Yeah, sometimes it's a red flag for domestic violence.
Exactly. And so I'm wondering if maybe Wayne's treatment of Bella was a preview of how he might have treated Robin.
I see what you're saying. So you're thinking that maybe the abuse escalated?
Yeah, maybe it started with Bella and then it moved on to Robin.
It's a possibility for sure. And if that's the case, then it gives us a possible motive for why Wayne might have wanted Robin dead.
Right. Maybe he felt like she was getting out of his control.
Or maybe he was just angry and lashed out.
Yeah. And then there's the cremation. It's like he was trying to erase any trace of what he had done.
It's definitely a possibility. But again, we don't have any hard evidence.
No, we don't.
Oh,
and that's what makes this case so frustrating.
Yeah, but sometimes even when we don't have all the answers, we can still learn something from these cases.
What do you mean?
Well, they can teach us about the patterns of abuse, and they can remind us that we need to be vigilant and look out for those warning signs.
I agree. So even though we may never know for sure what happened to Robin,
Yeah.
maybe by talking about this case, we can help prevent something similar from happening to someone else.
I hope so.
Okay, so we've talked about the accident theory and we've talked about the possibility that Wayne was involved.
Right.
But there's one more theory that we need to address.
Okay, what is it?
It involves Robin's ex-husband, Dean.
Okay.
Now, this is where things get really weird. Dean was found dead in the Chesapeake Bay just a few months before Robin.
What? Seriously?
Yeah, and the circumstances of his death were also a little bit murky.
Oh, wow. So we've got 2 deaths, both in the Chesapeake Bay, both with some unanswered questions.
Exactly. It's almost too much of a coincidence, isn't it?
It is. So what do we know about Dean's death?
Well, he was found with a bruise on his head, and the police ruled it an accident. But Robin's other daughter, Priscilla, she believes that the case was closed too quickly.
So she thinks there might be more to it.
Yeah, she does. And, there are some people who believe that Dean and Robin still had feelings for each other.
That's interesting.
So is it possible that their deaths are connected somehow.
Well, it's a tempting theory for sure, but right now there's no evidence to support it.
Yeah, the police investigated Dean's death, and they didn't find anything suspicious.
So for now, it looks like just a strange coincidence.
Yeah, a very strange coincidence. But I still can't shake this feeling that there's something more to this story.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. There are just too many unanswered questions.
There are. And, there's one more possibility that I've been thinking about.
Oh, what's that?
It involves Wayne and Bella, and a possible act of cruelty that might have had unintended consequences. What if Wayne throwing Bella in the pool wasn't meant to hurt Robin, but it ended up causing her death?
Okay, explain that. I don't quite follow.
Okay, so we know that Wayne liked to throw Bella into the pool even though she hated it.
Right.
What if he did it that night?
Yeah.
Maybe he was mad at Robin or something.
Okay.
And this time it just went too far.
So you're saying that maybe he didn't mean for Robin to die?
Right. Maybe it was just a stupid, cruel thing that he did.
But it ended up having fatal consequences.
Yeah, exactly. And we know that Robin loved Bella, so imagine this. She sees Bella struggling in the water, and she jumps in to save her.
Okay.
But the currents are strong, the water's cold, and Robin can't save her.
And maybe she couldn't save herself either.
Right, and that would explain why Bella had those bruises on her paws.
Yeah, like she was trying to get out.
She was.
Yeah.
And maybe Robin was too, but she just couldn't.
It's a possibility.
And if that's what happened, it would explain why Wayne was acting so weird.
Yeah, like why he lied to the police.
Exactly. He wasn't trying to hide a murder. He was trying to hide the fact that he caused Robin's death.
Even if it was an accident, and that would explain the cremation too.
Yeah, he was trying to get rid of the evidence.
Not of the murder.
But of his guilt.
I see what you're saying.
It all fits together, doesn't it?
It does. It's a really interesting theory.
And it's the only one that really makes sense to me.
I can see why you'd think that, but we have to remember that it's just a theory.
True.
We don't have any proof.
I know. But it just feels right.
Yeah, I understand that. But we can't let our feelings get in the way of the facts.
You're right. So where does that leave us?
I think it leaves us with more questions than answers.
Like always.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. We've looked at the evidence, we've considered the different theories, and we've come up with some possible explanations for what might have happened to Robin Pope.
And I think that's all we can do.
I agree. So to everyone listening out there, we want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And we want to leave you with this. What do you think happened to Robin Pope?
Let us know your thoughts.
Maybe you have a theory that we didn't even consider.
Or maybe you have some information that could help solve this case.
Either way, we want to hear from you.
And maybe
by keeping this conversation going.
we can finally get some answers for Robin's family.
And for all of us who are still searching for the truth.